Let's say it's going to be a busy day in the country's courts. Here's another big court case we're following. It's the fraud and corruption trial of former eThekwini Mayor Zandile Gumede and 21 others. Well, that's continuing today. Now, to remind you, they're facing charges relating to that dodgy 300 million rand solid waste tender. So let's bring everyone up to speed. Senior reporter Dasen Thathiah, you've been following this for a long time now. Here we are once again getting underway. Remind us where we are in this at the moment and what are we expecting today?
Well, Gareth, the last time we were here a few months ago, we didn't get very far, and it was expected because if you look at this case and how detailed it is and the number of witnesses that are expected to be called, it wasn't expected to be completed anytime soon. In fact, it's not even expected to be completed this year at all. So during the first session, there were only 2 witnesses that were called. At that time, it was the head of the city's Integrity and Investigations Unit, Mbuso Ngobo, but he fell ill shortly after he had began his testimony, and Sean Hitler, who was another investigator at that unit, he then took the stand, and that's where we left it. So at that point he was being cross-examined. They were essentially talking in the early stages of this trial about how the complaint came to be and how they ended up with this complaint about this alleged corruption that was taking place as a result of that DSW tender. So at least during this particular session now, we are expecting those witnesses to continue. Mbuso Ngobo should be called up to continue his testimony. But I just want to unpack this a little bit further with Melusi Kulu, who will be joining me now. Mr. Kulu, let's talk about firstly where we are in this case. It was a little disjointed at the beginning. We went from Mbuso Ngobo, went to Sean Hitler, we ended up at a cross-examination. There were documents that were introduced quite late on. Going forward now, do you think that would it make sense to go back to where we were with Ngobo, or would they just finish up with Hitler first?
I think it will make sense to start with Mr. Ngobo so that he starts his testimony and finishes. But sometimes you can't plan these things because sometimes we have a witness who will be sick. So in this case, he was sick, and if he's back, hopefully they will start with him so that it makes logical sense to start and finish with him. Then Mr. Hitler will follow up and he will be finished as well. So it's not disjointed, as you said.
You'll also recall that the defense was trying to make sure that they could poke holes in how the complaint was handled at the start, and that was really where their focus was. When you look back at the testimony from Ngobo and Hitler, what do you draw from that in relation to how this entire case originated as a result of that anonymous complaint?
Okay. If you remember and you followed Advocate Nigel SC's strategy, it was to put it across that the accused, specifically accused number 1 and the co-accused, they were targeted and they were handpicked by the forensics company that was given a duty to investigate. And if you check, the way they wanted to poke holes is also to show that that forensic team was not awarded that tender in the right manner. Ironically, that's what the case is about as well. So that is the strategy they're going about, that even the team that is investigating was not supposed to be the team that is investigating. So there were tender processes that were not followed properly. So that is the strategy that they are having, and then we'll see how it will go if Mr. Ngobo comes back and they follow up with the strategy that they are doing.
Thank you very much, Melusi Kulu there. And you know, another development, Gareth, was in the time since the trial started, Mbuso Ngobo has actually resigned since then. He had apparently been receiving death threats, and as a result of that, he's now left his position. But that, we are told, doesn't necessarily affect the trial. That is in his professional capacity. So it will be particularly interesting to watch his testimony when he does take the stand again.
Dasen, just as I say goodbye to you, just remind viewers, but there's a couple of court cases on the go today. What time is this getting underway for us to be able to follow?
Well, we should be in court at about 10 o'clock. That's if all goes well. And although, as per the last time, we were not necessarily allowed to, there were certain restrictions in relation to how much of that coverage we were able to bring to our viewers because some witnesses wanted to not have their voices and faces broadcast. So we'll have those determinations later when we get in, but it's expected to start at 10.
All right, so Dasen Thathiah, eNCA senior reporter, glad he is able to make sense of what's going on. It's difficult to keep track with this particular court case against former eThekwini Mayor Zandile Gumede and 21 others, starting 10 o'clock this morning. But we also know the court case for the murdered Babita Deokaran, expected to start at 10 o'clock as well. And the Senzo Mayiwe court case is going to be continuing throughout this morning. So when I said it was a busy day at the country's courts, I certainly was not lying at all.